Some commentators think that in death we meet ourselves. So if you, what you mentally, I suppose, are projecting into the future when you project your own death, your own mortality, is your ego. And so when your ego dies, you become, you pass through that experience, that fear, that terror of your own death. And this is something that typically doesn't tend to happen to people until they become either enlightened or they're older and they're more realistic about life. Young people tend to think that they're going to live forever, and they have postponed any dealing with mortality. And that's not true of all young people. Some young people obviously have had near-death experiences or have had emotional and psychological experiences that make them feel meant that they've gone through that process. But basically, for most young people, it's not really anything they worry about or think about too much. As some people say, young people think they've gotten away with it. They find out when they get older, of course, that they haven't got away with it, and it's just like everybody else. And of course, then the death anxiety comes to the fore, and it starts to weigh more heavily upon them as they approach the middle and then the end of their lives. But it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be that way. So if you do confront your own fears about death and go on and experience ego death, then you become, more enlightened, and you pass through your own passions, as some commentators would call them, and you become, I suppose, somebody who doesn't have an ego, because ego is all about dying and not dying, and ego wants to survive, and whatever it can do to survive, it will do.